My husband brought his childhood friend home. My mother-in-law told me to be more generous, saying that what man wouldn't like to have several wives. I glanced at the mushrooms my mother-in-law was washing. They were Amanita fuliginea, highly poisonous, and there were a lot of them. What are you looking at? I picked these myself to welcome Penelope. They're not for you. I burst out laughing, grabbed my bag and ran out. 3 hours later. While I was having a drink with my friend, the hospital called me. Is it that serious? Well, I lied. Then we'll have to give up the treatment. Today has been a happy day. I got a promotion and a 5,000 yuan salary increase. Now I earn 30,000 yuan a month. My husband, Matthew, only earns 8,000 yuan. To make him feel important, and also save a little extra money. I've always said I earned 5,000 yuan. Now I have over 800,000 yuan in savings. If I work hard for 2 more years, I'll be able to buy an apartment. I bought my mother-in-law a Chow necklace, my husband the latest model of iPhone, and my sister-in-law an L-bag. It was a big expense. But who can complain when I'm so happy? I carried the gifts and went back home. When I opened the door, I saw my husband hugging a woman. I looked at the package in my hand. Well, they don't deserve them. The smile immediately disappeared from my mother-in-law's face. She coughed slightly and said, Aurora, didn't you work overtime today? Why didn't you tell me in advance? With a 5,000 yuan salary, working overtime every day and not even asking for extra pay. Penelope and Matthew grew up together. You can understand their relationship. Can't you? Fuck your mother. I looked up at Matthew and said, What do you mean? Do you want to divorce me? The man shook his head, flatly refused to divorce and asked me to keep living with him. My mother-in-law smiled and said, For such a silly thing, you want to divorce. Be more generous. What man wouldn't like to have several wives? I knew they didn't dare to lose the 3,000 yuan of alimony I gave them every month. Matthew couldn't support the whole family. I'm laughing my head off if I stay with him. I even have to support his childhood friend. I blinked and said, Mother-in-law, I'll take you downstairs so you can be with Mr. As her. He's been in love with you for a long time. Although he's a domestic abuser, you can be his concubine and help Mrs. Zhang bear his anger. My mother-in-law's face turned black. Matthew frowned and said, Aurora. What's wrong with you? Didn't I ask you about this the other day? Didn't you say you agreed? What do you mean now? What the hell did I agree to? Suddenly I remembered. A week ago. Matthew saw a video about how to choose if you find true love after getting married. At that time, I said to him, You have to tell me. And I'll help you. What I meant by helping was to divorce and let each of us live our own life. What he understood was to bring her home and live together. Well. What an illusion. Matthew, are you crazy? With 8,000 yuan a month, do you think you can have 2 women by your side? I earn 30,000 yuan, and I haven't even thought about supporting several guys. Now that I think about it, I can. Sweet and cute guys, Matthew can't compare. Aurora, we're true love. You don't understand anything because you've never been loved. I'm the only one who was willing to marry you. Calm down. If you give me 5,000 yuan a month, I definitely won't divorce you. Well, they've given me a lesson in stinginess. I smiled at Penelope and asked her. What do you plan to do? Do you want to keep being the third party or get married officially? Penelope was a gentle and beautiful girl. He really didn't have to be with a cheater. Matthew hugged her and looked at me with hatred. Aurora, you're a repulsive person. What you can't have, you try to destroy. At least, he knows me well in that regard. My mother-in-law said virtuously. It can't be. Penelope is so good. I won't allow you to destroy their relationship. Well, have they forgotten that I'm the one married to Matthew? My sister-in-law came out of the bedroom in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes and said, What relationship is going to be destroyed? She looked at the package in my hand and her eyes lit up. Sister-in-law, is it for me? I burst out laughing. They want to take advantage of me, fine, but if they don't take my side and still want to take advantage, that's too much. No, it's for my friends. He's the one who deserves it. My sister-in-law bowed and said disapprovingly, With your 5,000 yuan salary, it must be a fake. I'm not interested. Fortunately, I hadn't given many gifts before, and they weren't very expensive. I like to buy food so that we can all eat together. I haven't lost too much. Yes, you're right about everything anyway. I'm not going to give them to her. My mother-in-law quickly came over and tried to take the package from me. Your money belongs to Matthew. These gifts are ours. Penelope is coming for the first time. Of course, you bought them for her. Well, how shameless. I looked coldly at my mother-in-law and said, "Are you serious? Don't force me to call the police and let everyone see how repulsive you, the Smith family, are." My mother-in-law grunted and went to the kitchen. Miserly, no one likes you. Penelope and my son deserve to be together. Aurora, do you want a divorce? If you give me 300 yuan, we can go to the civil affairs department tomorrow. So that was the trick. I thought Matthew wouldn't dare to leave his true love without a recognized status. I can easily come up with 300,000 yuan, but why? Impossible. Besides, you have to give me 300,000 yuan as compensation for emotional damage, otherwise I won't get divorced. I can be capricious. To my mother-in-law's face turned red with anger while washing the mushrooms. She was cursing at me. I didn't reply because I saw Amanita Fuliginia in her hand. They are highly poisonous and there were a lot of them. I was thinking whether I should warn her. After all, she's just a stranger. He doesn't deserve to die. My mother-in-law looked at me with disdain and said, "What are you looking at? I picked these myself to welcome Penelope. They were none of your business. Matthew graduated from Cunning University and stayed here to live after that. My mother-in-law came a year ago. My father-in-law died, and she didn't want to stay alone in the village. At that time, she was complaining pitifully. I was very busy and didn't have time to cook. Matthew usually ordered takeout. I thought if she got sick, it would be a problem. So I agreed. Soon after she arrived, my sister-in-law, who couldn't get into university, also came. She said she wanted to find a job here, but being a high school graduate, she didn't want to do heavy and tiring jobs. So she just stayed at home doing nothing. To be honest, many locals can't recognize certain mushrooms. How could it be any easier for them? Who are new here? Eat, eat. The more they eat, the better. I went to the bedroom, took my gold jewelry and left. I save 5 gold ingots every month and now I have more than 300, which are worth more than 200,000 yuan. I was already outside the door when Matthew leaned against the doorframe and said, "Aurora, think it over it. It's only 300,000 yuan. Your parents can afford it. He's crazy. The whole family is a bit strange." I turned around and looked at him coldly. "Wait. I'm going to leave and tell my brother if I don't beat you up. My name isn't Christian." Matthew shuddered when he heard me mention my brother. "Aurora, what does it mean to involve your brother in a matter between the two of us? When it comes to asking for money, he thinks it's normal to ask my parents to give it, but when it comes to getting a beating, he doesn't want me to call anyone. How shameless. What does it mean? Wait until the weekend when I call all the relatives, and then you'll understand. They dared to bully a daughter of the Datas family. Just wait to get a beating." At that time, when my cousin was mistreated by her husband's family, with one call in the group, in less than half an hour, we gathered more than 30 people and gave him a beating. After that, her husband behaved well. Matthew tried to stop me, but I got away. If they asked me to eat mushrooms, I would surely refuse. Would they get suspicious and stop eating them? As soon as I left the building, I called my friend, sister-in-law. "Call my brother, and let's go out for a drink. Juliet, my friend, is my sister-in-law." I introduced them before they got married. I lived with them. We have a very special relationship. In my family, we've never worried about conflicts between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law or between sisters-in-law because we all adore my sister-in-law. Everyone in the family competes with my brother to be with her. "Where?" "I'll come right away," Juliet said in a surprised voice. Immediately, I gave her the address and asked her to bring me a peach cake from the bakery near the community. They make it on the spot. It's clean and healthy, and it's very soft. It's my favorite cake. I haven't eaten it for a long time and I miss it a lot. An hour later, we met in a relaxing bar. My brother arrived with the cake. With a disgruntled look on his face, "Aurora, it better be something important." Well, I must have interrupted them again. My sister-in-law had her hand on my brother's waist and twisted it a little. My brother smiled kindly. "Sister, you must be hungry. I've asked them to make you the peach cake. Eat it quickly while it's hot." Is watching a movie that important? Aurora is more important than that, my sister-in-law said and gave him a look. Then she opened the cake herself and put it in front of me. "You must not have had dinner yet. Eat up, don't be so slow." It was already past 8 o'clock in the evening, and I was actually hungry. Eating cake with alcohol. The more you drink, the more drunk you get. Juliet knows me very well. She looked at me worriedly. Tell me, what happened? Don't be afraid. With me and your brother here, no one can hurt you. Ah, what a good friend. I handed her my bag. Here for you. It's the weekend. Can't my brother even give you a gift? What's so important about watching a movie? I'm the one who cares about you the most. This bag wasn't the one I gave to my sister-in-law, but one I bought especially for her. And it costs more than twice as much if everyone else got a gift. How could it be possible that my sister-in-law didn't? Besides, I couldn't return it, so I didn't want to cause trouble. My brother got angry and, taking out his phone, immediately transferred 8,888 yuan to her. My sister-in-law calmly received it, and then transferred 5,000 yuan to me. My brother could only look on helplessly. I was happily eating the cake and, taking the opportunity, I said, I might stay at your place for a while. Matthew has brought his childhood friend home, and I might get divorced. Boom. My sister-in-law slammed her hand on the table. What the hell, Christian? Call 80 or 100 people right away. I quickly grabbed my sister-in-law's hand and blew on it. Does it hurt? Why did you hit so hard? My brother's already angry face turned even redder. He was worried about me, but also secretly complaining because his alone time with my sister-in-law was interrupted again. I didn't care. Don't worry. When I left, they were about to eat poisonous mushrooms. Maybe I won't even have to get divorced and I'll become a widow. I'd rather become a widow. I briefly told them what had happened. My sister-in-law got angry as she listened. My brother furrowed his brows so tightly that flies could have been crushed. I told you not to just look at appearances, you deserve it. Matthew is really very handsome. Right in my aesthetic. At that time, my brother introduced his best friend to me. But since I knew him too well, I always saw him as a brother and didn't feel any attraction. After getting married, I learned that a peaceful life is true happiness. Even if someone is very handsome, seeing their face every day can be boring. If I could see different faces, surely I'd feel differently. It's the extra work and the ethical limit that keep me in this place. Matthew has gotten tired of me, and to be honest, I lost interest in him a long time ago. I looked timidly at my brother. Who hasn't been young? At that time I didn't have time to finish when my brother covered my mouth. Can't the cake shut your mouth? My sister-in-law smiled at my brother. But there was a hint of threat in her eyes. In fact, my sister-in-law knows all my brother's secrets since he was a child after all. I'm not going to betray my best friend. My brother gave and he coughed slightly. Today, whether they die or not, I'm not going to let it go anyway. I won't make things easy for them. My sister-in-law nodded in approval, and her gaze towards my brother softened a little. I swallowed a mouthful of cake and looked at my friend with a pitiful expression. Juliet, I don't want to live with the Smith family anymore. I have no home. What do you mean by having no home? What's mine is yours. Come live with me today, my sister-in-law said authoritatively. That house, actually, belongs to my sister-in-law. She's used to living there, and my brother moved in with her, bringing his quilt. Then, my parents bought him a car as compensation anyway. In our house, my sister-in-law is in charge. I looked at my brother with a pitiful expression. He didn't seem very happy. Sister, would you mind living nearby? I have an empty apartment. I heard my brother's melancholic voice. My sister-in-law patted him on the shoulder and said, Are you crazy? What if those people from the Smith family come to cause trouble? How can you be at ease knowing that our lives alone? Oh, my best friend is the best. I won't accept any arguments. My brother was left speechless, and I quickly offered him a glass of wine. My sister-in-law looked at me with a smile and said, The cleaning lady cleans your room every day. You can come back and live here anytime. I'm your support. It made my eyes tingle, and I almost cried. My friend is really wonderful. I was so lucky to have introduced her to my brother. I rushed directly into my friend's arms and said to her, Juliet, thank you. I don't know what I would have done without you. My sister-in-law gave my brother a glance and then continued to comfort me. My somewhat depressed mood improved instantly. I have my family and friends behind me, so I'm not afraid of them at all. And I feel very safe. In front of my brother's resentful gaze, I ate the 4-inch cake. It was so delicious. I had just taken 2 sips with my sister-in-law when the phone rang. Is this Aurora? This is the first people's hospital your family has been poisoned by mushrooms. And the situation is not optimistic. Please come quickly to sign. I didn't expect it to be so soon. My sister-in-law raised an eyebrow and couldn't hold back the smile on her lips. My brother gave a thumbs up and also seemed to be in a good mood. I sighed and said with fake sadness, "I'm sorry, it will take me a while to get there." "How many people have been poisoned?" "My husband has been unfaithful and brought a woman home, and he kicked me out. I want to know if Penelope has been poisoned and if she can be saved. If possible, could they all die?" The person on the other side was puzzled for a moment. "This lady ate quite a bit. And if she's not treated quickly, she could suffer from liver failure." "I'm glad. I was worried they had only eaten a little." Smiling, I continued to ask, "And the man? Is he in a serious condition?" "He also ate a lot. Please come to the hospital as soon as possible." "How could I come quickly? Am I going to run to pay their medical bills?" "Pay the bills for his mistress? I'm not crazy. I'm not that nice." If Matthew had been honest with me and told me what was going on, I would have let him go gracefully. But the fact that he brought his childhood friend home and asked for 30,000 and you on for a divorce is too much. "Don't I have any dignity?" I calmly replied. "How serious then? I'll have to give up the treatment. Anyway, I'm not going to sign for them." Shortly after hanging up the phone, my younger sister-in-law called me again. There's no need to think to know what she would say. I hung up directly. It seemed she ate less. Obviously, my younger sister-in-law could sign. But she's forcing me to go. Clearly, she's calling me to pay the medical bills. What an illusion. I didn't have to wait long for Matthew to call me. I was a bit curious, so I pressed the answer button. "Sister-in-law. Come quickly to the hospital. My brother is very serious and keeps saying your name. I'm scared. Could you please come?" It turned out that it was my younger sister-in-law speaking on Matthew's phone. I thought he had recovered, and it gave me a scare. "Don't be afraid. Your sister-in-law is named Penelope. What's my brother's relationship with me? What am I going to do there? Do you want a stranger to pay? Be decent." The person on the other side was puzzled for a moment and said with a pitiful voice, "Sister-in-law, my brother just wanted to know if you minded. In fact, today has been a complete farce, and they have no relationship. Do you know how sad my brother has been since you left? Who are they trying to fool?" I could see how they looked at each other. "Can I tell if there's something between them?" I smiled and said to her, "So sad that he ate a whole plate of mushrooms? I thought he would have eaten until he fainted. In order to get a lot of money from me, he kept lying. The current medical expenses are a bit high, but if they're sick, Matthew can't work, and I'll have to pay for the living expenses and the future treatment expenses of the whole family. My younger sister-in-law doesn't want me to come back but wants me to become a slave to the Smith family. Aurora, can't you have a little compassion? Anyway, you're my brother's wife and still a member of the Smith family. If you don't come, I'll call the police and accuse you of attempted family murder. You know about the mushrooms. Why didn't you tell us anything? The whole poisoning is your fault." What's so hard about giving a little money? You have half an hour. If I don't see you, I'll really call the police." She revealed her true nature so soon. There you go. I'm scared to death anyway. It wasn't me who picked the mushrooms. It's normal that I got angry and left when Matthew brought that woman home. Besides, there are no cameras at home, so I can say I didn't see anything. Without evidence, no one can do anything to me. I'm not afraid at all. After hanging up the phone, my sister-in-law was consulting a lawyer. And my brother was telling the situation in the family group, and a lot of family members replied. My parents were already driving from the village and bringing the 2 golden retrievers they'd had for 5 years. "Don't be afraid. Dear Dad will be there in over an hour." I'm not afraid. I've never been afraid of anything because I have a great family and friends behind me. My brother patted me on the shoulder and said, "Don't worry, sister, even if they die, our family can pay. Besides, you're still his wife, so you can write a letter of forgiveness." I didn't know the letter of forgiveness could be used this way. My brother is great. My sister-in-law nodded and said, "Are 2 dogs enough? I can find more aggressive ones. The Smith family has dared to bother me. They've eaten a bear's heart and a leopard's gallbladder." Half an hour later, we were near the hospital, and my younger sister-in-law called again. I pressed the answer button. On the way. My younger sister-in-law had called me more than a dozen times, and I had hung up all of them. She was anxious for me to go. "Aurora, Half an hour has passed, and I've called the police. After a pause, an unknown male voice was heard on the phone. Is this Aurora? I'm Inspector Isaac from the Wuhui police station. Please come to the hospital as soon as possible. Thank you for your cooperation. I replied amicably, I'll be there in 10 minutes. My younger sister-in-law grabbed the phone and said to me angrily, Aurora, make your parents send 30,000 yuan right now. My brother and the others are waiting for the money to get treated. Seriously. She doesn't care about her brother or her mother at all when it comes to me paying. The faster they get treated, the less harm it will cause them if Matthew gets away with it. His sister should be the main culprit. Besides, she asked me to give her 30,000 yuan. How dare she ask for that? You can't do whatever you want just because you call the police. You're blackmailing. I can report you. Read more and stop watching those The Authoritative President Falls in Love with Me novels. My sister-in-law snorted in disdain and hung up the phone. My sister-in-law and I exchanged a look and shook our heads. My brother said sarcastically, I've always told you that it doesn't matter who you date, but when you get married, you should investigate the situation of the whole family. Can looks feed you? A man like me, who earns money, loves his wife, and is handsome, is hard to find in the world. My sister-in-law and I ignored him. Who can blame him if he really loves his wife? We arrived at the hospital, and two policemen and my sister-in-law were waiting at the main entrance. Aurora, go and pay the money quickly. If anything happens to my brother, the Smith family won't forgive you. I laughed until I cried. He had been poisoned for so long. How could nothing have happened? She wanted to put all the blame on me. I don't have any money. I have a monthly salary of 5,000 yuan. I give 3,000 to your mother, and every week I spend hundreds of yuan on buying fruits for you all. I can't even afford the gas for the car and often take the bus. If you want money, there's no way. I won't pay a single cent to treat them whether they get treated or not. And if they die, even better. My sister-in-law looked at me with hatred. You may not have it, but your parents do. This as your husband, you have to save him. Before I could answer her, my brother said, Who do you think you are? Why should my parents use their money for you? If they don't have the money, don't treat them. If he dies, I'll donate an urn as an act of charity. My brother is tall and strong. He exercises every day and has muscles. My sister-in-law likes this type of physique, and he has worked hard and trained through tears. My sister-in-law was stared and took 2 steps back. Then she said to the police, Aurora is from Yunnan. She knew the mushrooms were poisonous but didn't tell us. She deliberately tried to kill us. I want to report her. To be honest, I'd like to waste a bit more time and let her illness get worse. I shrugged and with a desperate expression, I said, actually, I didn't want to say this, but I can't bear this accusation. Matthew brought a mistress home and asked me to borrow 30,000 yuan from my parents for us to divorce. I had absolutely no intention of paying attention to what mushrooms they were eating. I don't know where these mushrooms came from. We didn't exchange more than 2 words, and then I left home. You can check the neighborhood surveillance cameras. The 2 policemen looked at each other and then said seriously to my sister-in-law, Is there any other solid evidence? If there's no evidence, you can't accuse someone without basis. Life safety is the most important. Now you should raise money to pay for the treatment. I have no money, and the unfaithful husband deserves it. My sister-in-law turned red with anger and started cursing my ancestors. My brother looked at her furiously, and if there hadn't been policemen, he would have hit her already. I slapped her in the face. Your mother didn't educate you well. I'll take it upon myself to teach you. No need to thank me. My sister-in-law covered her face and looked at the policeman. She hit me. Now I can report her, right? The 2 policemen showed no expression. I said calmly. Now I haven't divorced your brother yet, we're still family. This is considered a domestic matter. An elder sister-in-law is like a mother. I can slap you. My sister-in-law started crying. She didn't cry when her mother and brother were in danger, but now a slap made her cry. She looked at me with a pitiful expression. Sister-in-law, I know you have money, save them. She tried again. She didn't get anything with a tough attitude. Now she was trying the soft approach, but I don't care. I came here to stop the treatment. Whoever has money can treat them. Anyway, I'm not going to pay anything. My sister-in-law stood in front of me, and my brother stood in front of my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law looked at my brother in fear. After another 10 minutes, my sister-in-law went to pay the money muttering, Look, she does have money. The two policemen said a few words and left. They're not doctors, there's no point in them staying here. My sister-in-law looked at me from time to time with hatred. She didn't dare to insult me. She could only look at me angrily. I was bored and about to leave when another crowd rushed in. They went straight towards my sister-in-law. The man in front looked a bit like Penelope. Black sister, where's Penelope? My sister-in-law's face turned as black as coal. Black sister? Huh. It seems my sister-in-law's nickname is Black Sister. In fact, my sister-in-law's skin is quite dark. It said she inherited this from her father. If Matthew were as dark as her, I'm sure I wouldn't like him. My sister-in-law pointed to the emergency room. Penelope had her eyes closed and a smile on her lips, as if she was having a beautiful dream. Black sister, didn't you say it was very serious? Why is she lying here? My sister-in-law gave me a quick glance and said with a pitiful expression, I don't have money to pay if you want to blame someone. Blame my sister-in-law, she has money, but doesn't want to pay. Incredible. How can she shift the blame to me? Black sister is really something. I gave her a disdainful gesture. I won't even save my husband, what does she matter? If you decide to be a mistress, you should be aware of your actions. Is it normal for the legitimate wife to pay when you're sick? Are you crazy? My sister-in-law was stunned. It took her a long time to react. I don't care anyway. I don't have money. Penelope's relatives looked at her angrily and then turned to me. Anyway, Penelope got sick at your house. You should be held responsible. I nodded. Sure, I'll be responsible. Well, ask Matthew to be responsible. Oh, by the way, the grandmother picked the mushrooms and cooked the food with her own hands. Ask them to be responsible. Better yet, ask for their lives. That way, I'll be rid of trouble. I can afford to buy some urns. Penelope's parents were puzzled for a moment and then said coldly, You're Matthew's wife. When something happens, you should also be responsible. Now send Penelope to the emergency room immediately. If anything happens, I'll make you pay with your lives. So unfair? Fine. I won't feel bad. Woof. Woof. Two gold-and-odds rushed towards them, baring their teeth without any fear. My parents came running with a group of people. Penelope's parents took several steps back and shouted, Security guard, get the dogs out. I looked at them maliciously and said, Don't be afraid, my gold and dog doesn't bite. Didn't you just say you'd sue me for my life? You can choose between Matthew's and the grandmother's. Penelope's parents quickly shook their heads and took her to the payment window. My sister-in-law looked at me for help with her eyes. I just shrugged, showing that I could do nothing. The security guard arrived, and I, with my two dogs and a group of people, returned to the Smith family. Everything that was mine had to be removed. My mother's eyes filled with tears, and she grabbed my hand tightly. My dear, you've suffered injustice. Well, it didn't do me any harm. I didn't feel wronged. My father was so angry that his hands were shaking. Fortunately, we arrived in time. Otherwise, they surely would have hurt you, daughter. If it weren't for Matthew being in intensive care, I would have hit him without mercy. Let him not die. Dying would be too easy for him. My sister-in-law gently comforted them. Uncle and aunt, don't worry as long as I'm here. I won't let anything happen to Aurora. If it weren't for the mushroom poisoning, her leg would definitely be lost. My parents' frowns immediately softened. My mother said proudly, Juliet, you're the most reliable. Just having you here makes us feel at ease. Once at the Smith family's place, under my direction, we started moving. Everything I had bought was taken away. The clothes and shoes I had bought for Matthew were given to the relatives, and what they didn't want was thrown into the neighborhood entrance trash can. The refrigerator my parents had bought for the wedding, along with the food inside, was taken away. The washing machine, the sofa, and the Simmons bed that my sister-in-law had bought were also taken away. In the end, even the main door, which my brother had bought, was removed. When we left, the house was empty. A gossipy neighbor across the street came to ask what was going on. My mother made a big publicity about what the Smith family had done. I'm sure that in a short time, the Smith family will become famous in the neighborhood. We moved 5 trucks of things to the house I had before getting married. My parents, who weren't very happy with Matthew, had bought me a house as a dowry and asked me not to tell the Smith family. I didn't expect that the marriage would end in less than 3 years. My brother kept saying that I should live in my own house or in his and his wife's house, and not be a bothersome third wheel. My mother gave him a few disdainful glances, and he fell silent at once. My sister-in-law looked at him coldly and said, "I don't dare to let her or alive alone outside. If something happens to her, it'll be too late to regret you. Her brother aren't as reliable as I am." Everyone nodded in approval, only my brother turned red. I said with a pitiful look, "It's not that I want to live there, but it's too dangerous outside, and I'm scared." My mother tapped my brother on the head with her index finger and said, "If it weren't for your sister, do you think you could marry Juliet? They're good friends, they could lie together all their lives." My brother shrank back and murmured softly, "I just want to have some alone time with my wife. The house is right across the street, you can hear if someone shouts. I'm not going to sleep between you two. Why can't we live like this?" I said with a stiff neck, as if it were something natural. "Juliet and I have known each other since kindergarten. If I wasn't afraid she'd meet a bad man, I wouldn't have introduced her to my brother." The next night, while my friend and I were having a big feast, my mother-in-law called. Had she recovered so soon? It couldn't have been that serious. "Aurora, are you crazy? Do you really want to get divorced? My Matthew is so handsome, you'll never find someone as good as him now. Immediately return the furniture and appliances. And borrow 30,000 yuan from your parents for us." Is she crazy? Eating mushrooms has affected her brain. Matthew has gained 10 kilos in the last 2 years. His 8-pack BBS had turned into 1, and he has wrinkles when he smiles. He's not as handsome as he used to be. "Auntie, don't you ever leave the neighborhood? You're so narrow-minded. More than a frog in a well." "Oh, I wanted to ask, did Matthew die? If so, I'll have to go." The person on the other side was so angry that she was panting. It took her a long time to calm down. "Ah, with just a few words, I've made her angry. There's no challenge. Aurora, my Matthew is perfectly fine. You, an abandoned woman. No one will want you." "Is that all? After all this time, that's all she said?" "Auntie. Me, an abandoned woman? You'll be a widow. What kind of society are we in? I can find a college-educated guy. Want to bet?" "Oh. Did Penelope die?" The person on the other side didn't respond. Smiling, I said to her, "No one died? But from the tone of your insult, it seems like your health is worse than before." The angry person hung up the phone. Not long after, my mother-in-law came to my company, but the guard chased her away. I had already anticipated that she'd come looking for me, so I informed the guard in advance. My friend told me that Matthew and Penelope were in bad shape. They had severe liver damage, and it was very likely that there was also deterioration in other organs. It was only a matter of time before they died. If they had been treated in time, it wouldn't have been so serious. The hospital had told them to get treatment, but my sister-in-law wanted me to pay and waited for me to come. Didn't Matthew and his sister have a good relationship? I wonder what their relationship is like now. I'm curious. Penelope's parents, upon learning of the situation, asked the Smith family to pay compensation, otherwise, they'd call the police. My sister-in-law ran out of money. When my mother-in-law woke up, a group of them burst into the room and asked her for 30,000 yuan. They said that after that, Penelope would be theirs, and they wouldn't care about her life or death. In fact, they knew that Penelope didn't have much time left to live. And the most important thing was the money. My mother-in-law couldn't give 30,000 yuan and wanted me to pay. No way. The Smith family won't get a single cent from me. Upon hearing this good news, I invited my brother and sister-in-law to a big feast to celebrate. And by the way, I bought a lot of luxury items. Everyone in the family received something. My sister-in-law bought me a watch as a gift. It cost over 30,000 yuan, more expensive than everything I bought today. It must be great to have a rich friend who is also a sister-in-law. I can get something for nothing. My brother was mumbling beside me. My sister-in-law gave him a disdainful look and bought him a belt immediately. He became happy. He's so easy to please. We returned home, laughing and chatting. At the entrance, we found Matthew in a wheelchair, with a pale face. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law were behind him. None of the three looked well. "Aurora, will you come back home with me? I need you." Penelope was a mistake. I just wanted to know where I stood in your heart, and it turns out I lost, but I'm not resigned. We were so happy before. What a mistake. All they lack is money, and someone to take care of them. They treat me like an ATM and a housekeeper with Matthew's current situation. He surely can't work. If I go back, all the pressure of supporting the family and paying for the treatments will fall on me. What a delusion. I know them too well for them to put on these acts for me. I'm not going back. I feel really good now. My brother and sister-in-law dote on me and have given me a lot of gifts. I pointed to the Patek Philippe watch on my wrist. It cost 350,000 and due on. My sister-in-law didn't bat an eye when she gave it to me. The three in front turned red-eyed. They only knew that my family was well off and that my sister-in-law had some money with 2 apartments in the city center. But my sister-in-law has 3 villas, over a dozen commercial stores, and even 2 beauty clinics. She's a successful woman. When I got married, she wanted to give me a commercial store as a dowry. I didn't accept it. So she sends me rent every quarter, and the red envelopes during festivals are never less than 10,000 yuan. She's afraid I'll run out of money. I can live without a husband, without a man, but I can't live without my sister-in-law. Matthew took a deep breath and forced a smile. Aurora, now I need a lot of money. Could you help me raise 500 yuan? I promise I'll pay you back in a year. How shameless, jumping from 300 to 500. Before I could answer, my brother stepped between us and looked at him with disdain. Matthew, are you about to die? Is that why you dared to talk like this? A man should die on his feet. Don't give me a reason to look down on you. If it weren't for the fact that you seem about to die, I'd send you to the hospital for a year or 2. Matthew's face turned red and then pale. On our wedding day, my brother got him drunk and showed him how he could break bricks in front of him, saying that if he dared to mistreat me, he'd end up like that brick. Since then, Matthew has been a little afraid of my brother. I didn't imagine that because of that pretty girl from his childhood, he dared to ask me for a divorce. They must be true lovers. Bound together forever. Matthew looked at me with red eyes and a pitiful expression, the same one I used to love. But now, I don't like it. He covered his mouth and coughed slightly, and then a little blood dripped onto his white shirt. He played the role of the sickly beauty perfectly. Before I could show pity, my brother pulled me and my sister-in-law a few steps back. Stay away from him. Maybe he really is about to die. Matthew got angry and coughed 3 times in a row. Aurora, I need 500 yuan for a surgery. If you don't want to give the money, could you come back? I don't think I'll live much longer. I want you to be with me in the days I have left. I vehemently refused. No, stay with Penelope. I wish you two to be together for all eternity. Matthew started to cry. I don't know if he was really repentant. He said, Aurora, let's go through the divorce procedures tomorrow. I don't want you to be rumored as a widow. Later, I found out that he did it so that he could sell the house more easily. He was afraid that I'd ask for the money from the sale. I looked at my friend and agreed. Mainly, my assets had grown too much after marriage. If they kept pestering me, it would be very complicated. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law turned red-eyed with anger. If it weren't for Matthew, they surely would have started fighting. A month later, I got the divorce certificate. Matthew had become a skeleton. It seems that even the most handsome people look ugly when they lose too much weight. I learned that he had sold the house, but before he could get the surgery. My sister-in-law took the money. My mother-in-law fainted from anger, but there wasn't much money at home, and they didn't even dare to take her to the hospital. And her health also deteriorated. Penelope stayed to live with them. Her parents had abandoned her, and she was in even worse shape than Matthew. And on top of that, she had to take care of the mother and son of the Smith family. What a pity. I wonder if she regrets it. A week later, my sister-in-law transferred 800,000 yuan to me. She said she got it from my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law was very young. Am I just sending to handsome guys? She easily got 800,000 yuan. My sister-in-law was so fast that before I could do anything, she had already finished. My sister-in-law had to come back that same night. The whole family died. It was Penelope who did it. She put rat poison in the soup and drank it herself too in summer. It only took 3 days for the stench to become unbearable, and the neighbors noticed.